Picture this. I'm standing in a packed courtroom, my heart pounding as my neighbor, Barbara Hensley, points a trembling finger at me, her voice dripping with crocodile tears. She's clutching a stack of photos showing a mangled flower bed, accusing me of sabotaging her award-winning rose garden during what she calls a reckless backyard renovation. The gallery gasps as she describes how my alleged negligence destroyed her lifelong passion project. But then, my lawyer calmly connects a flash drive to the courtroom projector, and the room falls silent. The footage that plays next leaves everyone, including the judge, struggling to suppress laughter. Barbara's own actions, caught in glorious high definition, unravel her lies in front of the entire neighborhood. My name is Michael Carter, and this is the story of how I turned the tables on the HOA's most notorious busybody and brought her reign of terror to a crashing end. 3 years ago, I moved to Willow Creek, a picturesque suburban enclave where I thought I'd found the perfect place to start fresh. The quiet streets, manicured lawns, and friendly waves from neighbors seemed like a dream until I met Barbara Hensley, the iron-fisted president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. From the moment I unpacked my boxes, Barbara made it her mission to make my life a living nightmare. It all began when I decided to transform my outdated, water-guzzling lawn into a sustainable xeriscape, complete with drought-tolerant plants and a sleek gravel pathway. I'd done my homework, cross-referencing every HOA bylaw, consulting with a landscape architect, and securing written approval from the design committee. My plan was bulletproof, or so I thought. Barbara, however, had other ideas. Despite my compliance with every rule in the book, she started bombarding me with violation notices. The first came just 2 weeks after I broke ground on the project. She claimed my gravel was too reflective and posed a glare hazard to drivers, an absurd accusation, given that my yard faced a cul-de-sac with zero through traffic. Then, she complained that my succulents were unsightly and didn't match the neighborhood's aesthetic standards, even though the bylaws explicitly allowed native plants. She even tried to fine me for a single weed that had sprouted in a corner of my yard, ignoring the fact that it was part of the naturalized design. Her nitpicking was relentless, and it wasn't long before I realized this wasn't about rules, it was personal. Barbara's harassment wasn't limited to letters in my mailbox. She patrolled my street daily, her clipboard in hand, jotting down notes with a smirk that could curdle milk. At home meetings, she'd make pointed remarks about certain residents who were lowering property values. Her eyes locked on me like a hawk. Neighbors started whispering about her vendetta, but most were too afraid of her influence to speak up. Barbara had ruled Willow Creek for a decade, and her word was law. She'd strong-armed residents into compliance with threats of fines, liens, and even foreclosure for minor infractions like leaving the trash can out past pickup day. Things took a darker turn in late August when Barbara showed up at my doorstep one humid evening, her face a mask of barely concealed triumph. She claimed that during a recent thunderstorm, a pile of construction debris from my backyard renovation had blown into her yard, flattening her prized rose garden. She demanded $1,000 to replace her rare hybrid tea roses, which she claimed were worth hundreds apiece. I was immediately suspicious. The storm she mentioned was a light drizzle, hardly strong enough to move a leaf, let alone heavy debris. Plus, my renovation had been completed weeks earlier, with all materials cleared and documented by the contractor. When I asked to see the damage, she waved me off, saying she'd already tidied up but had photos to prove her case. She gave me 72 hours to pay or face a lawsuit. True to her threat, 3 days later, I received a summons for small claims court. Barbara's complaint alleged that my negligent storage of construction materials had caused $1,200 in damages to her rose garden, with an additional $300 tacked on for emotional distress. Her evidence consisted of photos showing crushed rose bushes and scattered debris, but something about the images felt off. There were no timestamps, no witnesses, and no clear evidence linking the debris to my property. The whole thing smelled like a setup. After the summons arrived, I decided to check the footage from my recently installed security system. I'd upgraded to a state-of-the-art setup with 360-degree cameras, after Barbara had previously accused me of denting her mailbox. With my car claim I disproved when I showed the whole board. My vehicle was parked in my garage at the time. The new system covered every inch of my property, including a clear view of the boundary between my yard and Barbara's. What I found on the footage was nothing short of jaw-dropping. At 1:47 a.m. on the night of the supposed storm, the cameras caught Barbara sneaking into her own backyard, a flashlight in one hand and a shovel in the other. She was visibly unsteady, her movements erratic as if she'd had one too many glasses of wine. The footage showed her dragging a bag of old bricks and lumber scraps items that looked suspiciously like the debris in her photos from her garage to her rose garden. She then proceeded to dump the contents onto her own flower bed, stomping on the roses to create a scene of destruction. After arranging the debris to look like it had blown over from my yard, she pulled out her phone and snapped photos, carefully angling the shots to avoid capturing her shovel or the bag. The piece de resistance came when she tripped over her own garden hose while backing away, landing squarely on her backside with a muffled yelp. She scrambled to her feet, checked to see if anyone was watching, and hobbled back inside, leaving the shovel behind in the chaos. I couldn't believe my eyes. Barbara had staged the entire incident, destroying her own garden to frame me. I immediately called my lawyer, Sarah Bennett, who specialized in property disputes. When I showed her the footage, she clapped her hands and declared it a slam-dunk case. We filed a countersuit for trespassing since Barbara had briefly crossed the property line to inspect my yard, attempted fraud, and defamation, given her public campaign to paint me as a negligent neighbor. I also sent copies of the footage to the whole board, requesting an investigation into Barbara's conduct as president. Barbara's demeanor changed when her lawyer learned about the footage. Her attorney reached out, proposing a deal. She'd drop her lawsuit if I dropped my countersuit, but after months of her harassment, I wasn't about to let her walk away scot-free. Sarah assured me our case was airtight, with the footage providing undeniable proof of Barbara's deceit. Against her lawyer's advice, Barbara doubled down, insisting on taking the case to court. She believed her reputation as HOA president and her connections in Willow Creek would sway the judge. She'd spent weeks rallying supporters, convincing a handful of loyalists to write letters vouching for her character. Though most neighbors stayed neutral after seeing the footage circulate on the neighborhood's private Facebook group, the trial day arrived and the courtroom was buzzing with curious residents eager to see the showdown. Barbara arrived in a tailored blazer, her hair perfectly coiffed, carrying a binder stuffed with documents. She'd even hired a private videographer to record the proceedings. Confident she'd be vindicated, I walked in with Sarah and a USB drive containing the incriminating footage, ready to let the truth speak for itself. Barbara took the stand first, delivering a performance worthy of an Oscar. She spoke in quivering tones about her beloved rose garden, claiming the plants were irreplaceable heirlooms from her late mother's estate. She presented her photos, now claiming damages of $1,500, and painted me as a reckless homeowner who turned his yard into a construction zone. With no regard for the community, the gallery murmured sympathetically as she dabbed her eyes with a tissue. When it was our turn, Sarah kept it simple. "Your Honor, we have video evidence that directly contradicts Ms. Hensley's claims," she said, plugging in the USB drive. As the footage played on the courtroom screen, the room went silent. The high-definition video showed Barbara's late-night escapade in all its glory: the shovel, the staged debris, the crushed roses, and her clumsy fall over the hose. A few neighbors stifled giggles as Barbara's face turned crimson. The judge, a stern woman with a reputation for fairness, couldn't hide her amusement, her lips twitching as she watched Barbara's scheme unravel. When the video ended, the courtroom erupted in whispers, and Barbara sank into her chair, avoiding eye contact. The judge took a moment to compose herself before addressing Barbara. "Miss Hensley, this is one of the most audacious attempts at fraud I've seen in my career," she said, her voice laced with disbelief. "Not only did you fabricate this entire incident, but you wasted this court's time and resources, not to mention your neighbors. Your actions are a disgrace to this community." She dismissed Barbara's case with prejudice, ensuring she could never refile it, and ruled in my favor on the countersuit. Barbara was ordered to pay $5,000 in legal fees, $2,500 in punitive damages, and an additional $500 to cover my time and expenses. The judge also recommended I pursue a restraining order, noting Barbara's pattern of harassment, and forwarded the case to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges related to fraud. As we left the courtroom, I could hear neighbors planning an emergency HOA meeting to oust Barbara as president. The footage had spread like wildfire online, and public opinion had turned against her. Within 2 weeks, Barbara was voted out of her position by a landslide, with only her sister and a close friend voting in her favor. The HOA fined her $6,000 for violating ethical standards, and her landscaping business took a hit when clients dropped her after the scandal. The district attorney issued a stern warning but stopped short of pressing charges, citing her lack of prior offenses, unable to face the neighbors who'd witnessed her downfall. Barbara listed her house for sale the following week, quietly moving out of Willow Creek by the end of the month. Conclusion: looking back, I never imagined a simple landscaping project would lead to such a saga. But standing up to Barbara's bullying not only cleared my name, but also freed Willow Creek from her oppressive rule. My yard is now thriving, a testament to sustainable living, and the new HOA president is a breath of fresh air. If you're dealing with an overzealous HOA, my advice is simple: know your rights, document everything, and invest in a good security system. You never know when it might save you from a neighbor's schemes.